Welcome to The Truth About Science with your host, John Gatos. Hi, and welcome to The Truth About Science. Today we're going to consider infinity, something that we really can't imagine. But there are some properties of infinity that we can understand. And when we use it in math, it's something that we need to be very careful with. My brother made a statement one time about mathematics that made perfect sense. He said, "The trouble with math is that it always gives you an answer." What he meant by that is that sometimes the answer it gives you goes beyond what is actually possible. Infinity many times is treated like a number. It is actually not an integer. We cannot possibly imagine infinity, but we can understand some of its properties. There is an old argument about the non-terminating decimal 0.999 and if it actually equals 1 or not. Some people propose that there is always one more 9 at the end and that it actually never does equal 1. Let's examine this concept. Let's say that we carried the non-terminating decimal 0.999 to 100 places. This is already a number that is so close to 1 that it is close enough to measure anything in this universe with acceptable accuracy. However, 100 decimal places is really nothing when you are considering a non-terminating decimal. Let's think for a moment on a bit higher term. Considering a single grain of sand, if we could replace each atom as a 9 in the non-terminating decimal 0.999, we could carry this fraction out to 43 quintillion decimal places. That is a 43 with 18 zeros behind it. Would that be enough 9s to make the terminating decimal close enough to 1? Let's take another step. If you traded me 1 grain of sand for every molecule in 1 drop of water, I could build a road from LA to New York 1.5 feet thick and 1/2 mile wide. If you counted all the atoms in all those grains of sand for a 9 in the non-terminating decimal, is that close enough to 1? How many times more would we have to do this to reach infinity? How about if we filled the entire visible universe with sand? Is that close enough? I'll tell you this much. Any number that you can name subtracted from infinity still leaves infinity untouched. Infinity is not an integer, and so it cannot be described as such. For those who still believe there is always one more 9 at the end, the truth is that there is always an infinite number of 9s wherever you seem to think the end of infinity is. Applying infinity to mathematics has some uses, but we must remember that it will lead to conclusions that are ridiculous and impossible. Here's another factor of infinity that we can perform a thought experiment on. Fractal mathematics generate patterns that continue on into infinity in their complexity by repeating the pattern smaller and smaller forever. Let's consider that we have a circle with a fractal pattern at its edge that is infinitely long. Let's say we start a light beam in one direction with the goal of reaching all the way around the circle. Is the light moving? If it has an infinite way to go, we can say that the light is not moving at all, even though it is moving at 186,000 miles per second. Well, we can see that this is an impossibility. These are the kinds of answers that infinity gives us when we apply it to mathematics. If man left math to describe everything in the universe without using any common sense, then he will be continually misled. This line of thinking has led men to believe in such things as the Big Bang Theory. To believe that everything suddenly came from nothingness is absurd. If there is no time or space or matter or energy, there is nothing that can produce all of that. The only infinity that could possibly accomplish such a thing as this is the creator of the universe. No order comes from chaotic explosion. It is a law of nature that things tend to break apart. Instead, we have a universe that is so perfectly balanced and filled with amazing properties that cannot be explained by science or math. Every idea that man has come up with to try to explain a universe that formed itself without a creator has fallen apart. Each one of them is flawed and generates more questions than answers. You see, scientists are seeking the wrong infinity. Their infinity is non-substantial, unconscious, and imaginary. The infinite force that created the universe is all-knowing, all-powerful, and aware of everything through all of time at once. The evidence is overwhelming, but there are people who are so stubborn that they will deny the truth and believe a lie instead. Their only goal is to escape being subject to an almighty God. You can see how trying to calculate with infinity leads us to all kinds of wrong conclusions. Believing that time, space, matter, and energy came from absolutely nothing is preposterous. Man, in his arrogance, believes that he can predict everything in the universe with his science. He will even reach to the realm of impossibility to try to explain a universe without God. Fortunately, there's a new breed of scientist that is asking critical questions that theories are not explaining, and opening new grounds in the field of science. And it's this new breed of scientist that is blazing the trail that reveals the path to the truth about science.